the only 4 Democrats to vote against the emergency border bill. Now, Pelosi told the New York Times it proves that they have, a following in their Twitter world, and AOC accused Pelosi of outright disrespect for repeatedly singling out newly elected women of color. So, is this going to work out?
Ladies. It's like, it's disheartening. It's like the enemy is the guy tweeting in his toilet. That's who the enemy is, not each other. Stop it. That makes me sad. I mean, the Democrats, we have to get rid of this guy, and this type of infighting is not helping. And I don't know about going to race right away. It's like, really? That's where you go right away? I thought that was a bit much, frankly. What do you say to that?
Well, I have a problem with how all these young women started out when they were accusing, older Democrats like myself of not getting what needed to be done in the country, and started saying, you haven't done this, and I do believe on the show, I said, well, so are you saying that the guys that, are in now didn't march across the Pettus Bridge? That wasn't important enough? And so, for me, when you start out telling people that they don't know what they're doing and get out of the way, it's annoying to people. So I don't think this had to do with color. I think this is more, BS, because really Nancy Pelosi and Di Feinstein have both been there a zillion years by themselves fighting this cause of making life better. So
this is why it hurts.
You have to, I don't know what happens to people, but please remember that the people who are here now, all you young people, you're on the shoulders of a whole bunch of people who came before you. And you have to stop discounting that. I know everybody has to have young people come in. That's the way of the world. But you can't start by saying that they didn't do their job, so get out of the way so you can do it.
But
not okay.
Bottom line, at least for these ladies, keep your eye on the prize. Yeah. We're trying to get Trump out of office. Everybody around him is corrupt. And I mean, so many people are corrupt around the guy. It's been a very, very difficult 2 years. I wake up every morning in anxiety and stress.
Yes.
And that is the reason you stick together, to get him out.
That's true. I think what we're seeing is sort of this generational clash.
That's the word I was trying to find.
I think you're seeing this generational clash, and it's unfortunate because I would hope that they could work together and that Pelosi would harness this sort of fervor that they have brought into the party. I mean, they want to serve, obviously, this squad. And I think that they have energized a lot of people that normally wouldn't be that interested in politics, and that's a good thing. I think that's a very good thing. I think that, the social media following can reflect some public sentiment, and I think that's interesting. But to Pelosi's point, they got 4 votes. They didn't have 2.whatever million votes like they have on Twitter. And so both sides really need to come into the room and start speaking to each other, because my understanding is that Ocasio-Cortez and Pelosi haven't spoken to each other since February. And that's unfortunate, because there can be power if the two generations get together.
And they were once on the cover of Rolling Stone together after the election. And lest we forget, it's Pelosi who delivered midterms, okay? And that's what I would say to these 4 women right here. It was her leadership, which I once questioned on this show. I no longer do. I would also like to say she's 79 years old. And she could be with her grandkids. She could be with her family. And I don't like her. I don't agree with her politics, but she's still serving her country. And that deserves respect from younger generations in the same way that I think that Joe Biden and everybody else who has dedicated their life to service deserves respect. For me as a Republican, I mean, I was texting memes to my friends, let them fight. Let them all fight it out, because it's Democrat on Democrat crime. It's like fratricide. It's fascinating to watch. Republicans don't do this when it comes down to the wire. Democrats do it all the time.
They used
well,
to.
we don't anymore. And I will
now
say,
they're lining up behind this fascist.
Yes, they are. And I will, and it's going to hurt you, but it's going to hurt you. But at the end of the day, Republicans see the bigger picture, most of them, when it comes to legislation and the Supreme Court. And if you're going to fight it out on the hard left like this and hard progressiveness, that's fine. But when it comes down to a general election, when these people, and Nancy Pelosi knows this, when you have to talk to coal miners in West Virginia, when you have to talk to people in Pennsylvania, when you have to talk to people who lost their jobs, I don't know if all this infighting is going to make that much.
Why don't you like her? You say you don't like her. Why don't you like her?
I don't like her policies, but I respect anyone who has dedicated anyone who has served the length of time this person has served and who could be retired. She's almost 80 years old. I respect any woman who is working in public service in that way.
One thing I think that Nancy does need to be careful of is that these are women of color. And there are 4 of them, and they are young.
Why were they there in the first place?
Well, I think they do have to. She does have to be careful because she is calling them out in a way on her side as well. Because she's saying things like there's a big difference between being and these things are true. But she's saying there's a big difference between being an advocate and being a legislator. She said she's been quite dismissive. She called the Green Deal the Green Dream or whatever. She suggested that a glass of water running as a Democrat could win in the district that Ocasio-Cortez won.
That was a little snarky, but it was true.
She's been very snarky.
Well,
It's
yes,
true.
she has, but
these things are true.
Remember,
but women of color are watching that.
Well, women of color, watch me right now. Okay? Let's keep this in mind. Do you think Nancy Pelosi wanted to pass a half-ass bill? No. The moderates were the problem, and I would say to these women, did you sit these moderates down and say, listen, we got to put this together? What have you done? Have you called? Have you tried to work?
They're not caucusing.
Well,
it's true.
And if you're not going to do that, you're not allowed to bitch about this. If you want to move it, then let's get it moved.
The squad?
Yes, the squad.
They have to caucus.
Okay. As I have to move right now. We'll be right back.
Still ahead, that won't fly. The black woman who says she was shamed and humiliated into